Joining us now, he's been very patient. We appreciate that. Sheriff David Clarke. He's America's Sheriff. You can go to americasheriff.com. That's americasheriff.com. And he's been very active. He's been on the border many, many days in March. Hey, Sheriff, great to have you with us. Sorry we made you wait, sir. I'm sorry.
Not a problem, John. It's my pleasure to be on with you.
All right, we're live at the General Assembly today in Richmond. I got a lot of people coming in and out, so we appreciate that. Let's start with baseball. Your Cubs 1-3. What's the deal there?
No run production. Got shut out last night. But you know what, John? Come on. There's 162 games in the baseball season. We're in the first a little over a week. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. You know that.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, these early games in April don't mean a lot. You just don't want to get off to a bad start. My Astros, they're under 500, 2-3, but they've been on the road, so we'll see what happens tonight. The crisis at the border, I tell you what, Sheriff, it's just reaching. Every time you get on it, the next week it gets worse. Now the president is throwing his hands up because we're back to catch and release. We got 100,000 people apprehended in March, all of them released. They're making fraudulent claims for asylum. The laws that we have are not going to get changed by the Democrats. They're encouraging people to come in. We've got another 20,000 strong caravan coming, and the president says, look, I'm just going to shut the whole thing down. Should he do that or not?
Look, if the president feels that the border should be shut down in the interest of U.S. security, U.S. sovereignty, then I support that. You know, I don't want to get too far out ahead of the president. I want to wait to see what he's going to do. I know that he's talked about closing it. That has to be on the table. Look, there's just no more capacity anymore. He knows it. He's getting no help on Capitol Hill from either party. I challenge you or anybody to name one GOP member on the Hill that's leading the charge in terms of getting Congress off their butts and do something about this humanitarian crisis at our southern border.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not going to do anything because, look, you got all these Democrats running for president. They're saying the opposite. I don't know what their infatuation is with illegals, but you've got a lot of them saying, let's get rid of ICE, let's abolish it, like Kirsten Gillibrand in New York and Kamala Harris and others. You've got them saying whatever barriers we have, knock those down, let everybody in. It's fine. You know, we're an open-hearted, welcoming country. Nobody should be turned away. Everybody that claims asylum should be granted it. I mean, what is the Democrats' plan here? They're obviously not going to do anything.
Well, their plan is chaos. I mean, that's part of the strategy to make this thing so untenable that the system collapses. Because they have no will to fix this problem. The Democrats don't. I don't think the Republicans do either. Especially, you know, we're in 2019, just past the first quarter of 2019, and once you get toward 2020, just after summer, nobody in Congress is going to push any buttons because it becomes an election year and they become afraid. I was at the border, as you indicated. I doubt if Gillibrand and Harris have ever been to the border, and if they did. And they saw what I saw, and they still came back with that same attitude. Well, it's pretty obvious to me that they don't care. It was in the Grand Valley sector. I'm sorry, the Rio Grande Valley sector and the Big Bend sector, two of the five sectors along the Texas border. The other one is Del Rio, Laredo, and El Paso. Now, here's the issue. The big issue is at the northern border of Mexico, our southern border, the entire northern border of Mexico that borders the United States is controlled by the drug cartels. The entire border. The government is not in control. However, the government is complicit. The government of Mexico is complicit in this issue with these hordes of people, this invasion of illegal aliens. I have proof because when I was down at the border, we stopped several bands of people from Honduras coming up, and they showed us temporary visas, literal pieces of paper that were legitimate, temporary visas from the Mexican government to be in the country of Mexico. In other words, they illegally crossed into Mexico, were given temporary visas by the Mexican government because the Mexican government knew they weren't going to stay there, that they were heading to the Mexico's northern border, our southern border, and trying to gain entry into the United States. So whatever Mexico is saying in public is a lie. They are complicit in this. They could do something about it. They could shore up their southern border along Guatemala and Honduras. They failed to do so. That's the issue for the President of the United States. He does have some options, and he's weighing those options now. I know that he'll make the right decision because every button he's pushed in terms of dealing with this crisis, humanitarian crisis on our southern border, it has had some effect.
Well, listen, I think the president has to get Mexico's attention, right? And he's got to get Honduras and Guatemala. You know, now we understand that the Guatemalan government, Sheriff Clarke, is actually encouraging their citizens of different races to leave the country and go to the United States. They're actually encouraging it. So the president cuts off the aid and everybody screams and cries about it. But yet you've got one government encouraging citizens to invade another country and come there illegally. How does that make sense?
Well, I say let them scream, because one thing that gets people's attention, especially foreign nations, is U.S. aid. And so if the president, one of the options that he's weighing is to cut off aid to Honduras, to Guatemala, and to Mexico. That will put pressure on the Mexican government because it may collapse the fragile economy in Guatemala and Honduras, causing a mass migration into Mexico. And then Mexico will have to deal with it because they all aren't going to be coming toward the United States. So that will get the attention of the Mexican government. The problem for the Mexican government is that Mexico is a failed narco state. Their number one export are drugs. You look at the drugs pouring across our southern border. You look at the sex trafficking that's going on. You look at those things. Those are, really the gross domestic product of Mexico. Is that sort of thing. It's a failed state. So, you can only deal with that so long along the southern border before it starts to affect the United States, which is why you have this surge of people trying to get in. But I want to remind people that there's no right to come to the United States. You do not have a right to come into the United States. This is a sovereign nation. The border has to be controlled for a number of reasons. One, you have domestic and national security issues, and the president has said, and the DH secretary has said, this is a national security crisis. You also want to control the spread of infectious diseases. We're seeing diseases pop up in the United States. I'm not going to blame every illegal alien that comes in for it. However, we don't know what they're introducing into the United States. We have several diseases that were almost extinct in the United States that we're starting to see again. And then the third reason is you want to control the influx of another countries and ne'er-do-wells. That's what we're getting into the United States. We're not getting people who are going to add value. We're getting people who have no skills, no education, can't speak the language. They're going to be a burden on U.S. taxpayers.
Well, and they keep coming in, and the problem is it's almost now a domino effect, Sheriff Clarke, and a magnet. We've only got a couple more minutes. We're with Sheriff David Clarke. He's America's Sheriff. You can go to his website, americasheriff.com. He's also on the board of directors at We Build the Wall, Inc. He's been at the border many, many times. He was just there last week. And so, Sheriff, you got this domino effect now where everybody knows that the border is overwhelmed, that our resources are stretched. And so the idea is if you try to get into the country now, you got a heck of a shot because there simply isn't enough people there to stop you. There's no wall. There's no barrier. And look, they said they apprehended 100,000 people in March, but records show that we're only apprehending 30% of the people that come over, which means there's another 70% or another 250,000 that came over and were not apprehended that are just in the country illegally. Then the 100 that came in, they can't process those. 90% of them get released. So you've got now hundreds of thousands of illegals coming into the country on a monthly basis with nowhere to go because the laws that have been passed protect them when they come into the U.S. Those are not going to get changed. There's no wall. So the president, what choice does he have but to just shut the thing down and get Mexico's attention? I don't know what other options he has.
Right, and it's also going to get the Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill. They're their attention, because obviously there'll be fallout if you close the border. It'll have some economic impact for both countries. There's no doubt about any of that stuff. But he's got to make decisions, and we have a very decisive president. He's going to weigh his options, and he's going to make a decision in the best interest of the country. He's not going to make a decision in the best interest of his politics, because he doesn't care about this. This is a policy issue for him, not politics. But think of all the drugs that are getting in. 90% of the fentanyl and opioids are coming into our southern border. Think of all that stuff that's getting by. Think of the human smuggling, the human sex trafficking that's occurring along the southern border that's getting into the United States. This is the issue here for Americans. The American people understand this. Congress understands it, but they have this real ambivalent attitude toward it, like, well, like we do with everything else, we'll just leave it alone and maybe it'll go away. But it will not go away. So the president, I trust this man. I say that respectfully. I trust the president because, like I said, he has taken the politics off the table. He's going to deal with policy, what's in the best interest of the people of the United States. That's the kind of leader we need in the White House right now.
Well, he's certainly going to do that. I want to thank Sheriff David Clarke for being with us. More information, go to americasheriff.com. And he's also on the board of directors at We Build the Wall, Inc. And Sheriff, the next time you're going down to the border, let me know, and I'll go with you. We can actually do our show down there together. I think that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
That'd be fantastic.
All right, we need to do that. And we'll see you in a couple of days. I want to thank again Sheriff Clarke for being with us.